Hello, this is Sam Froese, and this is my premise-driven TED Talk. A lot of people have a lot of things to say. They just don't always know how to say it well. Today, I want to persuade you that at some point in not only your professional journey, but also in your life in general, you should give a public address. And if you're willing to listen, I will show you not only why, but how to do it well. Because God has made each of us unique, special, and image bearers. Therefore, you hold the dignity to speak well and the service to learn to do it in a way that, perhaps, may change the life of another human being. In fact, as you go across this journey, you might just find yourself transformed along the way. For everyone has a story to tell. Many people believe that they are just ordinary nobodies, but everyone has complexity and glimmers of beauty and wonder in their lives. In this TED Talk, I am seeking to embolden you to search through your life and find unique ways to express that hidden beauty and truth. I honestly believe that our social media age often has individuals who are always showing you their highlight reels. People who seem like they have everything together, who explore the world, meet fascinating people, and do crazy things, which, when compared to your seemingly background events or potentially mundane life, seems like a vast expanse between you and that person. These feelings then continue to perpetuate you into thinking that you could never compare to these people. But that is a simple lie. God sees you with eyes of mercy, seeing not just who you are right now, but who you will be. Lori Gottlieb made a fascinating statement in one of her TED Talks. She says that we are all unreliable narrators of our own lives, meaning that unless you know the right themes and threads to pull in your stories and testimonies, you will often miss the most important things you really want to say to people, as well as potentially convince yourself that you have nothing worth offering the world. While a lot of this seems a bit abstract and a mental reconstruction, let's get into some specifics which you can focus on. Let's first start with analyzing your life and finding more than what meets the eye. G.K. Chesterton has this amazing quote where he says that the most extraordinary thing in the world is an ordinary man and an ordinary woman and their ordinary children. So let us approach your life with this mindset. God has given each of us a unique experience and history. Let's start with getting over any fear of invisibility. I have a friend, let us call her Butter. She is an incredibly shy person I know who thinks she has nothing interesting about her life. But I know her better. She may think that her life working at a pasta joint is boring and unappealing, that she is just scrapping by in life, saving money for what she thinks is an unattainable goal. Yet there are hidden beauties that, once pried open and exposed, show wonder and intrigue in her life. She has shared with me that she likes to draw, to paint landscapes. She told me that she mainly drew scenery stuff growing up, like forests and mountains. She loved nature and the world around her. Sadly, most of the drawings that she had made growing up have been lost to time. She also shared with me her love of her family. For many years, she took care of her two younger siblings, preparing food and putting them to bed. Simple stuff. But this is an excellent example that, on the surface, can easily be overlooked. I bring her up because, as a friend, I have been able to get her to share with me her interests and her passions, that of nature, family, and the world around her. Just from that short example, we can pull a host of ideas and concepts, these being drawing and creativity, nature and beauty, kindness and generosity, familial responsibilities, and so much more. One can analyze their life to see what sort of time they have spent on certain activities and passions. Everyone has experience in so many different things in life. So as you reflect, see what you have spent a considerable amount of time on already. You might just be surprised that not everyone has done what you have done. Now that you've done and chosen an aspect or concept that you feel passionate about, let's find some interesting facts that could potentially hint at something deeper in your speech or story. This is what I like to call the collection phase. Let us choose a subject, say something potentially overlooked, like the importance of bees. You could start working on collecting all the information that you know about bees, such as their dance and the way that they communicate. You could thus talk about how essential their communication is and the importance of that to the hive. Here is an example of the waggle dance that bees do. It is said that they do this dance in order to inform the hive of the distance and the direction to the flower, which is such an essential role. This type of communication helps the hive thrive. And as you can see here, they're able to collect pollen and feed the hive. All this and more is really cool and informing language that can then be laid before you as you begin to craft your speech. Once you feel like you have adequately you've acquiesced enough information, let us move on to what makes a good speech. Structure is very important in your speech. You cannot be whizzing by different ideas and concepts nebulously while you may be excited about a subject. Structure allows you to get the full amount out to your audience. You usually want to have an introduction with some type of hook or question which engages your audience. If you're going to go with a theme of bees, you can start potentially with wonder and excitement about how honeybees are such an essential insect that we have. In fact, you could say they are one of the best insects out there. Or, alternatively, you could begin your talk about how easy it is to start up your own hive. You could share some of your own research, as well as appeal to many in the audience who love honey and also want to be self-sufficient. Whatever the case, a good beginning really lays the groundwork for your speech and what it will be about. As you move on with your structure, you will want to continue onto your main body of your presentation. This is a really important part because it allows you to be creative in what you're ultimately trying to say. Going back to the two examples that I brought up for the introduction, you can start talking about how your type of wonder changed how you viewed your bees, how you viewed bees. Maybe as a child, you grew up in fear of bees. Maybe even make a few bee jokes or a meme like, not the bees! Or some other humorous reference that your audience can laugh over. Yet then provide an inverse and say, bees really aren't something that you should be afraid of. They're actually a lot cooler and have a more important role in the upkeeping of our society. Then, listing off a statistic to allow your audience to really understand the scope of how many bees we're really talking about, you could say that America in 2023 had about 11.5 million beehives, which, as you say to the audience, is a huge amount. Show genuine impressiveness. Maybe even clap and show how that number kind of surprised you as you were doing research. Or if you're going down the other path of advocating for people to try getting their own beehives, talk about the desires for self-sufficiency, the taste of homemade honey, as well as maybe explain some of its benefits. Show how the homemade honey has a vast amount of nutrients and greater flavor than store-bought honey. How its texture and taste are just leaps and bounds better than anything that is manufactured. Perhaps if you wanted to invite the audience in on your experience, let them imagine for themselves the taste of honey. Give them a moment to close their eyes and picture its taste in their mouths, its heavenly flavor and its goodness. These types of things that you can do could sprinkle across your message on bees and show how to define your relationship with them via positive emotion, as well as an informed knowledge. Now, let's get to your conclusion. As you're wanting to either have a call to action for them to maybe reconsider potential any animosity between themselves and bees, or maybe give them a few more tips to start a beehive for themselves. Or, if you really want to be clever, talk about what I had referenced earlier about dancing, about how you feel like words can often be inadequate. Maybe you feel pressed for time and wish you could just communicate in another way. Maybe you could say how, upon reflection on bee dancing, it has emboldened you to work on your own dancing skills. Or maybe you're no longer embarrassed by your own inadequacies. Whatever the case may be, make sure to land on something concrete that your audience can hold on to as they leave. All right, so you have a speech in your mind and you're hitting all the right spots in your head. Now it comes down to practice, delivery, and presentation. Let's focus on practice. I often recommend looking at a mirror and working on your expressions. When you want to hit certain themes and points, your face should light up and reflect the same. If you're excited, be excited. If you're curious, show curiosity. Furrow your brow. Stroke your chin. Be expressive. If you show to your audience that you are invested and excited about the subject, they too will be more invested and intrigued in what you have to say. As you practice, make sure to speak out your speech. Say it out as loud as you can as you're working on it, so that it works in the right form that you're presenting. Make sure that each stage is understandable and the transitions smoothly between each of your points. See when you want to pause and signify that a new idea or concept is about to begin. Certain pauses and blank deliveries really can hammer home a great point. Now, let's talk about forms of delivery. Marshall Poe, in his book, A History of Communication, talks about some of the limitations of audio speeches. He speaks about the range limitations and how far you really can present. Therefore, keeping in mind just how loud you want to be, your spatial circumstances should inform you on how to give your speech well. Say you are at a podium. Since you're in a more public area, make sure that you're speaking to the farthest person you can see. Sometimes you may have a microphone, or other times you may just rely on your voice. Whatever the case may be, make sure you are well equipped in order to give this speech well. If you have practiced it over and over in front of others and yourself, be willing to make mistakes. Relax, breathe in, take a deep breath, and know it's going to be okay. Now, let's talk about presentation. I've already hinted earlier about facial expressions, but maintaining your body language is also vital. There are many places you could go to get a helpful definition of what body language means, but a helpful definition by many scientists say that body language is the use of physical behavior, expressions, and mannerisms to communicate non-verbally, often done instinctively rather than consciously. However, you can still hone your body language to show what you want. If you are going to be super tight and rigid, you will fall to a more robotic delivery, which leads to not as of an interesting story or talk. Other times, people pace back and forth and moving their hands sporadically. This can often distract the audience away from what you're trying to say, which is not at all what you want. So be loose with your shoulders, place your hands confidently on something or by your side as you speak. Or if you're like me and like use your hands a lot, make sure they flow well with your speech. Find different ways to move your hands in tandem with your words. Be open, not closed off. Make sure you maintain eye contact with quite a few people in the audience as you speak. There are countless studies that show how eye contact is essential in public speaking, for it shows authority and confidence. These are two great qualities to show the audience, as you never want them to doubt either of those factors. Eye contact doesn't have to be long. It can be just a few minutes or a few seconds, just a glance, but in that glance, you can reassure the audience of what you're trying to say. All right, so you've worked through all of these and more. You've chosen a topic, you've gained confidence through knowledge and passion, both through research and drawing from your own personal experience. You've worked on structure and sprinkling key details and connection with your audience. You know your conclusion and where you want to land the metaphorical plane of your speech. You've practiced over and over, focusing on different forms of delivery and location. You've spoken boldly but clearly, feeling confident to give a speech wherever and whenever you find yourself. You've learned how to control your body language, to maximize being expressive and be intentional with how you use your hands and your face. You feel like you are on top of the world. But don't forget that the best laid plans almost never survive first contact with the enemy. So, how do you set yourself up for success? Start small. Something simple, like a 2-minute toast to a fellow coworker or peer, or a team meeting where you summarize what happened last time, or even just a local panel to show who you are and what you're about. Not every speech is going to be super intense and profound. You will simply exhaust yourself by thinking up the most witty and clever responses with every interaction. Instead, keep it simple. Jason Enge offers an insightful statement when he says, "Don't get too deep. It leads to overthinking, and overthinking leads to problems that doesn't even exist in the first place." I, for one, love saying very profound and cool statements that can shock and awe the audience. But if I bend over backwards to push something that doesn't really fit, it only damages my speech. Build your way up in speeches. Work on maybe giving longer ones with better memorization. Make sure that you work on different ones, even ones that make you uncomfortable. This is the best way really to grow. Maybe consider that before the end of the year, you give a public speech to 10 or to 15 people in a significant environment. It might be uncomfortable, but Jordan Peterson has an amazing quote which says that people rarely grow when they are comfortable. So sit on that and dwell on that for a while and really think what that means. I'll leave you with this. You don't need to be perfect in order to change the world, but just one story, one audience, one chance, and one word can be the difference for everything. Thank you.